Hi guys, it's Dee and welcome to Dee's Yard. Today I want to give you a quick update on a few projects that I did last year and let you know on how my rooted cuttings and annuals overwintered, as well as share my thoughts on the mini greenhouse that I used. So last summer I took some cuttings on some weigela, hydrangeas, salvias, and boxwood. Then late September I put a video up showing on how I potted up all the rooted boxwood cuttings and set up a temporary mini greenhouse to overwinter them, and here are my results. All of my boxwoods overwintered perfectly and they all survived, and they're even putting on some new growth already. I did experiment with two different sizes of pots, both filled with pine bark soil conditioner, which is just aged pine bark fines that provides good drainage. The larger pot is considered a trade gallon or 3 quarts, and the smaller one is a 4-inch pot or 1.5 pint, and they both worked equally as well. I had no issues with drying out or being too wet. I only took 2 cuttings of my variegated weigela that I have in my yard, but they both overwintered perfectly as well. And most of my hydrangea cuttings also made it. There were 2 that didn't survive the winter, but honestly, I expected that since I took them last minute and they didn't have enough time to establish much of a root system. Now I did lose all my salvia cuttings, but that was to be expected. They kind of had everything going against them. The salvia used was only cold hardy to my zone 7A, and although our temperatures never reached below 15 degrees Fahrenheit this winter, they were brand new cuttings that were in a container, above ground, and didn't have much of a root system because I took the cuttings very late. But that is perfectly fine, and I am very happy with the success of the other plants. Now I've already moved all the plants out of the mini greenhouse and gave them a good drink, and now I'm going to give them all a slow release fertilizer Osmocote so they are all set for the growing season. So now let's talk about how the temporary mini greenhouse did to overwinter everything. First off, it was very easy to both assemble and disassemble, which makes it super easy to store, and I had no issues with tearing, and the landscape staples were enough to secure it from being blown around. After using it for one winter season, the best way to explain the protection is one step up from a frost blanket or row cover. It definitely provided some protection, but not enough for me to consider it a greenhouse. And where I live in East Tennessee, Zone 7A, we warm up even in the winter on most days. So I had to be very vigilant to make sure to open the windows, otherwise it would get way too hot and start cooking all the plants in there. And then I would have to come back out to zip it back up for overnight. So it definitely was not a set it and forget it operation. Also, because when you leave the windows open, it is not enough for the rain to reach each pot. So every now and then when the soil got dry, I did have to water them. With all that being said, I am happy that I purchased it, and I definitely will be using it next winter. But just know you do have to maintain the temperature inside and water. It is not maintenance free. And you won't be able to overwinter anything tropical or not hardy to your zone at least. And even then, it's still a risk. The next update is on how some of my annuals overwintered from last year. If you remember, in early November last year before first frost, I decided I was going to save a few annuals to bring inside to overwinter. The main reason is to save some money for this year's garden, but also to add some color and life indoors during the winter. First, I took cuttings of my coleus and propagated them in water. Once they had a healthy root system, I potted them all up. With the polka dot plant and diamond frost euphorbia, I just pruned and divided and dug up and planted them in pots to bring indoors. And you guys, they have done so well. I mean, right now they are begging to go back outside and be planted up. But they did so good and were very low maintenance. I just kept them in a south-southwest window, which doesn't get much sun. I never used a grow light on them, and I only watered them when they needed it, which was only about once a week. And I only fertilized them once. Both the polka dot plant and euphorbia kept blooming. So now I'm going to slowly reintroduce them to being outside again. Once I get them hardened off, then I'll plant them in containers and enjoy them for the rest of the year. I think the biggest takeaway that I got from all these projects is how much I love propagation and experimenting with plants, especially during the wintertime when there's not much to do. I hope you all enjoyed this video and maybe it inspires you to try something new in your garden. I'll see you in the next one. Bye guys.